Good evening, my fellow sim pilots and enthusiasts. So today was a total catastrophe trying to do this show earlier. The F-35 was not working and it just, everything fell to pieces. And so after the show, I didn't know what to do. I just thought I would ditch it. And as the evening went on after dinner, I kept thinking about it and I'm like, I think I just want to do it again. So I found out what the problem was, and it wasn't they screwed up the aircraft after all, and it was my fault. So here's the mistake. When I played with it the last time, when I flew the F-35, it was on my old machine, and I didn't have DirectX 12 set. So in rereading through the manual and looking for troubleshooting, I came across the section that said, don't use DirectX 12. And I thought, well, that's unusual because it's a graphic issue, and it actually was kind of working earlier in the day when I was setting up. But what the heck? Do it. So, toggle DirectX 12 off, restarted, and it seems to be working mostly fine. So now it's just trying to find the zen of it again, but it's working. So, sitting down to think about redoing today's show, I discovered some things that were really, really cool that I completely overlooked for doing research today. For brevity's sake, I was just zipping through things, and I'll get to that here, what I discovered. But more cool things. So, anyway, if she's working right, we're going to take off from here and do a slow cruise over to a point near the mountain, and then we'll start heading towards the Stanley Hotel. All right, this show's going to kick off in 1 minute. Pardon me while I take it from the top. Minute before you're supposed to go live is the longest minute in eternity. Waiting for the clock, that 1 minute before you go live. Good evening, my fellow sim pilots and enthusiasts. So, happy Halloween season. Everybody knows about Stanley Hotel. Well, if you're into horror films and you've seen The Shining, then you know all about the Stanley Hotel. And you watch those paranormal shows like I do, Guilty. And it's like, oh, it's really haunted. And okay, but is it? But, that's all we focus on. So we're going to go there today. It's not too far in moving at F-35 speeds from my home. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take off from the Colorado Springs Municipal Airport, head over towards the mountain. I'm going to talk about something before we move on at the Broadmoor. Then we're going to hightail it north, but we need to pass through Denver because that's a pivotal point in the story. Then we're going to cruise out to another pivotal point, and then hopefully we can make our way without crashing down into here. And the place we're going to be going is over, Hold the line. Here. Okay. Unfortunately, you get a better look at the place from here in the map. This isn't built in 3D in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it's a little bit of a letdown, but we're going to the location. And there is seemingly some, well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around the Kubrik film. And then there's conspiracy theories that are involved in the Stephen King book about this area. And what does it all mean? And what happened to Jack? And which story am I supposed to be listening to? The Stephen King story or the Kubrik story, or is it some place in between? Or not at all? But I don't know. Maybe tonight, in what I'm about to read you as we go along our journey here, might get you to think about some things you'd never thought about, especially if you have actually watched videos on breaking down the Kubrik film, breaking down Stephen King, and, you know, being a fan of The Shining and a conspiracy nut, and I don't say nut, just conspiracy theories they can be fun, but they can also be, yeah, nuts, I guess. All right. Let's get the show on the road. Get my coffee here. Cheers. Here's to your health, well-being, and prosperity. Forgive me if I'm not going to pay attention to chat right yet. Today was a nightmare. I don't want it to be a nightmare. I need to get this thing up in the air and get it moving and get the autopilot working and have it take us on our course with me not having to really touch the controls. I have too much to read through and cool things to point out and talk about. They're at least cool to me. And that's just another weird set of layers to an already weird set of layers. Wow. Okay, so we've got our path up in here, like we saw from the main menu. I'm actually doing this left-handed because the transition's kind of weird. Well, look at that. Something already went wrong. That's so strange. It's like starting up. So this is what was happening today. It was like being haunted. I'm being haunted for even attempting to do this. That's what it feels like. Because look at that. It came up and it reset. It's resetting all the screens. That hasn't... Folks, I've been rehearsing this since after dinner and making sure everything went smooth. Same as today. And then as soon as I kick it off, the most unusual things happen. I'm going to reset and see what happens. Let's not do that. The information I want to get to is really cool. So come on, spirits. Ooh, come on, spirits. You want to hear these stories, and I want to get to them tonight. So... no more haunting. I'll be darned, you silly thing. Well, I think... Folks. All right. Let's try a different approach. I just did a run through prior to doing the show, all the way from here to Estes Park, just to make sure that everything was working just fine, and it was. And I was, as I was flying, I was reading through everything and going, "Oh, this is cool," and "Oh, this is cool," and "Wow, okay." And then as I got into Estes, I changed my altitude wrong. I came tumbling down. But the point I'm making with that is that everything just went flawless. So I don't know. So let me load the thing back in. And take it from the top. Got to break the curse. We've just got to. This is ridiculous. I mean, it's funny if you're on the other side of things. Damn. Poor fella, everything goes wrong. Everything that can go wrong for a fella trying to do a live stream, it happens to this guy. See, that's normal. That's the way it's supposed to be. All right, let's try to get the show on the road then again. Okay. First things first, click our stove, put it into hover. Our canopy just open. That was weird. Oh, it was our thing up there. All right, I want to set the autopilot speed at 180. We don't need to zoom straight at the mountain. And around here is 7.4. And think about holding the route. You bugger. Well, we're halfway there. All right, the reason why I wanted to come over here is I wanted to, they're two very different men, and they don't know each other, but they're going to both become very pivotal when it comes to the development of both Colorado Springs, Denver, and Estes Park. And so, though they may not have known each other, the gentleman that helped establish Colorado Springs here, through his own early life activities, became a multimillionaire and wanted to create something spectacular here in the Midwest, in Colorado Springs, a jewel. So he dumped all his money into bringing out famous architects and artists like Maxfield Parrish to develop what we're flying towards. And him and his wife was real big into the arts. They're real big into everything. So he dumps his money into this, and it's mostly for the upper crust. But they're also philanthropists. So they're spreading the wealth like mad, creating foundations and doing all kinds of help work. So really influential. Now, the Stanley Hotel it is a similar story. It's a story about somebody coming up and getting a lot of money in early life, and then coming to Colorado and north of here doing basically just the same thing. He's going to establish a foothold in Colorado, in Estes Park. And why that particular spot, that is interesting. And again, then he's going to be really influential in developing Estes Park and everything from there and Denver and all over because of what he creates later. Okay, so it looks like the autopilot's working. Let's jump. Oh, I forgot to put the gear up. Okay, so Broadmoor. Come on. Oh, he's turning a little fast. Okay, so the Broadmoor's out there. Pardon the graphics. That's viewed from way out here. Okay, so that thing sitting on the lake, that's a giant hotel. And then in front of it, giant convention center. And buildings everywhere, and a golf course. And up on the side of the mountain at about 200 and maybe 300 degrees, going up the mountain from the golf course, there's the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. And then from the zoo, if you go like 45 degrees from there and go up the hill, you'll see the point on the mountain, the Will Rogers Shrine. So he built that too. He was just a big fan of Will Rogers. Will Rogers is not interned there. Spencer Penrose is. Anyway, that is a story. The Broadmoor, this area and the development is something I would really like to do in its own show. But right now, but because they're similar, I really wanted to stop by here first. All right. Let's see if she can get through this turn just fine. And it looks like we're doing okay. But we probably do need to come up to 9,000 feet. I'll take us outside to sightsee the trip once we get out there, and I'll start bringing up my other things to read here. All right, she's climbing. She's doing fine, but now we can open up the engines a little bit. I don't install the thing first. She's a bugger. I love it when it works right. Now I could have taken other planes, but this stretch right here, you know, in any other plane, it's just gonna take a lot longer than I really want. Okay. So this is how Mr. Stanley of the Stanley Hotel, how he ends up making his money. Now the speed is acting funny. Come on. Okay. The Stanley Motor Carriage Company was an American manufacturer of steam cars that operated from 1902 to 1924, going defunct after it failed to adapt to competition from rapidly improving internal combustion engine vehicles. The cars made by the company... Almost had to take us outside. Sightseeing view. Air Force Academy. Think about doing this thing with only maybe 10 to 20 horsepower. This trip we're doing here. All right. The cars made by the company were colloquially called Stanley steamers, although several different models were produced. Twins. I did not know this. Twins Francis E. Stanley and Freelan O. Stanley. Now that's the Stanley that we're going to be dealing with. They founded the company after selling their photographic dry plate business to Eastman Kodak. Did not know that. When they were growing up, they had an unusual family, and they have a history of naming their children after famous people and moving their children around to other family members to raise. Like Isaac Newton Stanley and Ulysses S. Grant Stanley. So these two grew up making their first dimes doing maple syrup. So they must have had a nice spread where they could tap all them trees. Okay. So, yeah, then they get into the camera business, pioneering a technique that was brand new. Up to that point, film was it was mostly a wet medium. So they developed this dry process. And then they ended up selling it later to Kodak. Okay, so let's see here. In 1899, Freelan and his wife Flora drove one of their cars to the top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire, the highest peak in the northeastern United States. The ascent took more than 2 hours and was notable for being the first time a car had climbed the 7.6 miles, 12.2 kilometer long Mount Washington Carriage Road. The Stanleys later sold the rights to this early design to Locomobile. In 1902, they formed their own Stanley Motor Carriage Company. So they operated for a good 24 years before obsolescence in the early, about the 1910s when gas started coming in. So they've been featured in movies quite a bit, older movies. One of most importance, The Great Race, starring Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and Natalie Wood as the driver of the car. And a Stanley steamer appeared in the 2003 film Seabiscuit. So his brother, who ends up later dying, he also invented the airbrush. He patented the airbrush. So it was like money upon money upon money. Okay, so they become hoity-toity and they establish a bunch of clubs. And he's an architect and Freelan now, the guy that's going to come out here to Colorado. Well, he learns that he's developing tuberculosis. And so he is advised by people from back in Colorado Springs that he's been working with, like the guy from Locomobile that he sold part of it to. So he's been working with these guys, and they're all real estate guys from Colorado Springs, and they tell him, hey, there's an area here near Denver, a little past Boulder, And it's like Davos, Switzerland. All right. Now, I'm not saying that that's a conspiracy flag, but that's interesting to me. Now, I don't want to take any time other than saying like Davos is like a super elite place where the people who claim not to rule the world go to have discussions about ruling the world while telling us that they're not ruling anything. Oh, so what are you doing? Are you doing all that other crazy Illuminati stuff? I'm not saying that's why he ends up establishing out here, but they said this place will be great for your tuberculosis. So he and his wife fly out here, and they have one of their Stanley Robust Mountaineer cars, I guess, being shipped out here. And when they both arrive, spend some time, I guess, with friends, and then he sends his wife on home, and he starts trekking in his vehicle out. We're going to make this turn here out towards Boulder, and I guess he gets lost or stuck for a while out in Boulder. And that's where Stephen King comes into the story, because that's where Stephen King ends up later in his life and decides with his wife and kid, or I guess the kids with a babysitter, decide that they're going to go stay at the Stanley Hotel. And that's where The Shining comes from, is his visit over there. Okay, so he ends up becoming like the president of the bank. This is really interesting. The rich Irish landowners that own all this area that we're going to, they have like generationally had it for a while, but they don't get along with any of the locals. And all they were doing was setting up like a hunting preserve. A hunting preserve. Nothing harmless in that. No, I mean, nothing harmful in that. So Stanley ends up getting a hold of this land because the locals don't really like him, and he's coming there, and they're like, yeah, we like this guy. And we'd rather he be like the governor here and the bank holder and the steward and whatever. So the Scottish people have already split, and they left all their people in charge, and it just says the land slowly starts becoming Stanley's. So now he decides, yeah, I like it up here, and he's getting healthier, and just like vehicles, that need to breathe, engines that need to breathe, right? I guess it ended up being the spot because he was so overjoyed with his returned health from being at a place that looks like a spider down there, from being at a place that rejuvenated his health. He decides, I'm gonna build a hotel here for all of my my really rich friends who may also suffer from tuberculosis. But I'm still gonna set up a bar, and they love smoking, and we love playing pool, and we like bowling, and we like doing all these cool things. So I'm gonna build a hotel, and then oh, another thing. Him and his brothers used to make violins and musical instruments when they were younger. And those are like super collector's items. Henry Ford ended up getting one of the violins. So that is where we're flying to, his hotel. Let me show you what it really looks like. It's rather disappointing at the moment in the simulator when we get there. I'm going to cover it all in snow. Anyway, like in The Shining. that's actually what it looks like, and there's Mr. Stanley outside. Pretty swanky. He also brought in a bunch of notable architects of the day, and he and his wife, same thing. Very big into arts, very big into philanthropy. They wanted electricity. Now, Tesla is in Colorado by 1890, so this is all kind of going on about that Tesla time. Electricity's starting to come to be. Anyway, he still retains, at this time, they retain a lot of their rights, and they're still the Stanley Motor Company. And now he's creating a bunch of vehicles that are really good at traveling between his hotel and other resorts, and from Denver. So again, he helped establish transportation and ultimately helped establish Denver. Denver was pretty new at the time too. The gold rush brought a lot of people out here. And I'm sure there are, but I haven't found out who the big money people were yet in Denver and where they first set up. I've heard about some generals and a couple other people, but we'll get to that story another time. All right, so now like the Kubrik film or the Stephen King film, and there's a lot of websites out there dealing with like the top 10 conspiracy theories surrounding The Shining. It's hell. Okay. Yeah, maybe. It has to do with Native Americans being killed up and down this area, genocide. Now the Cheyenne and others were all over the place. Mr. Stanley establishes that area instead of as a hunting preserve. He establishes it as the Rocky Mountain National Forest, and it's approved by the United States President. He was also the first one ever to give a United States President a ride in a vehicle. So he's going to need electricity, and that's the point we're flying out to before we make that little turn there at the end. He now wants to be the first hotel with electricity. So he is going to have a power plant established at a lake nearby. So that's got me thinking that if they're using, I haven't looked into the formation of the power plant company and what they were actually using, but it's on a lake. And so that got me thinking about Tesla, and Tesla stuff is all hydro-based. Well, mostly hydro-based at that time. He had already done Niagara. And so I'm wondering if it was Tesla tech. Because again, you've got a lot of people moving between Colorado Springs, all the movers and shakers in science and technology and everything else. Okay. Let's see how high we are. Sure seems a lot higher than that. I'm already dreading going in there after the first attempt. So, fascinating story. Let's see. Too many pages open. All right. As far as I can tell, nobody died there. No Stanley car is ever reported to have blown a boiler. All right, the way that they designed them and the way that they wrapped them and they were contained and the way that they were heated and the way their design allowed for valves to pop that would just ensure that it could never blow. The main boiler would never blow. So not a single Stanley vehicle. They set a speed record that wasn't broke until much later. They got one of the Stanley steam cars to do, I want to say like 200 miles an hour. That might be reaching, but it was a really high. It was a high number. Let's see if I can find that one. Oh yeah, so when Ford came along, the Stanley steamers were $3,950. Again, rich. So this is another way that Ford and the other companies took over. The Model T was only $500. The Stanley actually at that time in early development was probably like the Betamax. He believed that the steam technology was superior at the time and believed that research and development in the steam technology would prove better than gasoline. And I don't think so. But we don't know. We don't know. The powers that be and blah, 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 blah. There's some interesting names that come up in the story. MZ Barber, the asphalt king of Colorado. He's involved in the story because they need roads made. They don't even have roads. Let me show you what one of these things look like. But the one I put up in the cover art, that's like the wagon. He had some that are like wagons which would carry like 12 people. They did a lot of different models. The mountain machine or something like that. The mountain wagon. So the story of The Shining now. What do we know about the story of The Shining? So Jack and his family go there, and Jack loses his mind, and one of the ghosts there, that's the bartender named Grady, he's involved in the story somehow for losing his mind and killing his family. So Jack, for whatever reason, they don't say that he's possessed, they just say he goes insane. And in the original story, Jack, I believe, lives. No, he doesn't live, but he's supposed to, as a caretaker. They tell him at the end of the movie when he shows up in the photograph, or Grady tells him, "You've always been the caretaker here." And so I guess in the Stephen King story, he goes down to the boiler, and that's his main job, is to make sure that the boiler, under no circumstances, fails. But it does. Jack, I guess, gets his consciousness back, and he breaks free of the hold of the evil spirits, and the boiler blows, and the whole place blows up. I guess that's the ending of that one. But it is interesting that it's a boiler. But we now know from the other stories is that their designs and technology, which made them popular choices, they had boilers that wouldn't blow, and they never had a boiler blow. They returned to that theme in the Dr. Sleep, or it was whatever the sequel to The Shining was. They returned to that theme, and I think That's how that movie ends again. There's something to do with the boiler room. That's the sole driving force of the like the evil entity is protect the hotel, protect the boiler. But either way, they were the first getting power, and the first hotel in the United States of America to have electricity. So we're getting ready to pass that lake down below. Where he set up the power plant. Where I made my mistake is right after the turn here. I descended too low. I'm gonna have to just do it manually. So I'm believing this is the lake right here. Power plant. And then Estes Park is beyond those, like those twin peaks right there. And down in a valley. If I could play the soundtrack to The Shining right now, I would. But that trip up, when they're making the trip up in the car. So Stephen King and his wife, they live in Boulder. They decide they're going to come up here and stay a weekend or whatever without the kid. And when they get there, they're told, "Oh, sure, you're just at the tail end of things. We're getting ready to close for the winter." He's like, "What?" Well, since the place was built, we always close for the winter. It's just too tough out here. Oh, but you're right there at the end. So he got to stay there with nobody there and, wandering the halls and meeting the real bartender named Grady. It all started happening for him. And he imagined his kid running around that place with all them creepy halls. So that's how he came up with the idea. And that's what's told. That's the story. So then Stanley Kubrik comes along and holy crap, man. It's going to go Stanley Kubrik land. Going to... Okay, good. So far, so good. Back over here. I'm all nervous. Everything that did go wrong earlier today. Pardon me, I'm doing this left-handed. So that should be it there. Coming from Boulder through Loveland to here, really, really, really amazing. Just, it's no wonder, all conspiracy theories aside, if you're here, you're going, well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to say, this is mine? Little reverse thrust here, negative 10 knots. There we go. There we go. I was little when the Shiny came out. Yeah, it scared the bejesus out of me, man. The Kubrik conspiracies. You know, it's a weird world. It is such a weird world that you don't know. And since, you know, in movies like Eyes Wide Shut and in some of his other productions, you know, people that know him said he was always trying to interject information to you that, you know, like secret information, trying to tell you things. And like Eyes Wide Shut, the Illuminati stuff. So in the big picture of things, you got to wonder with powers and movers and shakers, you know, what are all the other connections that we don't know about to this place? If any. Again, but it does make the imagination go, ooh. On the ground, you see a maze. Now, I don't believe a maze was part of the thing. I think they've added this in over the years to, you know, because of the movie. Or maybe it's something like the maze didn't exist because in the book, it was a boiler room and not a maze. Something like that. So I don't know if that's the manor. I don't know the exact names of or what buildings are what, but because of his love of instruments, he ended up building his wife a concert hall. I think that might be it over there. Then he had a giant garage built for all the vehicles, the fleet, and then he had underground bowling alleys and, again, huge bars and smoking rooms because all of his friends, whether they had tuberculosis or not, they needed to be shown a really good time. The place had 48 rooms to start with. Or maybe that's still it. Maybe it still is only 48. I don't know. I don't know what these other properties are. So he ended up not dying here. He died of a heart attack back out east. He came from the east. I think Maine and Massachusetts to start. So I found that in the whole family thing, his brother creating the airbrush and them creating the dry plate photography and then creating the first steam automobiles and all the other things that came with it. So to me, that all adds a lot more stuff, a lot more credible stuff. If you want to go with conspiracy theory. Other things that are being said, though, they're saying, okay, you know, it's too dark. It's too dark. He wasn't that way. He wasn't that way. And they're saying he was him and all of his family were devout. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, or at least he didn't drink and smoke after he was told he had tuberculosis, they say. But that doesn't dismiss the idea that, you know, you could still have lodges involved. And these people are really high up. And then what's with all the creepy reincarnation names? And I think the guy kind of looks like a vampire. So let's go back to the snow real quick. So this is how it ends for Jack. Out in the maze. Trying to hunt down his kid, Danny. Wasn't that Snowcat that they came in and left in? The thing with the giant tracks that gets them over the hills? Didn't you want one of those? I still want one of those. Just yeah, man. Those are crazy. I love them. You need one. We haven't had really good snows out here. Uh-oh. You know what that means? It means we better get out of the sky. Oh. Uh-oh. So that brings two problems with it in the F-18. One, when you're in hover mode and you run out of gas and you're not on the ground, and then you do an emergency refill like I just did. Now you're so heavy, you can't hover. So if you want to hover again, you're like, I can't get it into hover. I can't get it into hover. What's wrong? It's in red down there. Did I bust something in the plane? No, you're just too heavy and it won't hover. So I think it's a simulator. They would really frown upon this. Confirmed dump open. All right. So now it just starts dumping your fuel. We'll just call this the bonus part of the show. Well, there's a little bit more too. You know, going back with the movie, was it filmed there? No, it wasn't filmed there. So it wasn't even filmed there. Kubrik sent his people out to take photographs of everything and then redesign everything at Elstree Studios. So it was, yeah, so it wasn't even filmed there. There was an explosion, but it wasn't a boiler explosion. So, from what I'm reading, is that there wasn't enough electricity early on, or right in that period. They had to still have gas lights and gas generator backups. And one of the gas generators, as I'm understanding, had a problem and it caused a fire. I don't believe anything exploded. Well, maybe. They said one maid was blown from the second story down to the first story. So, maybe. But she didn't die. Nobody died. And again, he didn't die there. So there's been no reports of Grady that I can tell about actually, you know, people dying. But you just don't know. Okay, we've dumped enough fuel. And now you can return to hover. So it's all fun to think about. And it's just, you know, imaginations running wild as we like to do. And it makes things interesting and exciting and spooky. And that's the spirit. That's the spirit for for Halloween. So I hope you enjoyed a mostly uneventful trip from Colorado Springs up to Estes Park, the Davos of Colorado, home of Mr. Stanley, who's did way more cool things than that. And again, I think that that should be more about what the place is known for than hauntings. I don't believe it. Maybe. I have never gone there. So, you know, it's close enough. I'm going to add that to the bucket list, I suppose. Because I'll take Christine up there, but I really doubt it. People got to make money, right? And it's so good for tourism. People are insane with all the ghost hunting shows and paranormal shows, and cool, you know. People got to make money. Sucker born every day. And again, I'm not going to discount, and you might be really into it, and I'm not going to discount it. And I can't say everything in life that I've seen I can explain. Wow. This place, I don't know. As we get that creepy flash right there. I will catch you next time. Hopefully tomorrow will be a lot better than today. I have to find something creepy for tomorrow. Where's another good creepy place? If you have any good creepy suggestions, leave them in the comment. And I'll try to do a creepy place until Halloween, I guess.